This is our cemetery project that we came up with, and I did the graph for 100 males that died before 1900, and this is a type 2 graph because it's pretty much a straight line, and it has a big drop-off from ages about 30 to 60, and that's because of the lack of medication that was in that era. Also, there's a lot of poor sanitation that was in this time frame, so a lot of males couldn't survive past age 60. And there was a higher death rate in this time than males after 1900 due to all the diseases that were in this era. And no one in this graph survived past age 80, so it just shows all the diseases that affected people, and that's basically it. So now Tori's gonna show her graph after me about females that died before 1900.
So my graph is 100 females that have died before 1900s. It is a type 2 curve as well as Derek's. They're very similar. Leading causes of their death would be tuberculosis, dysentery, there we go, pneumonia, whooping cough, and a lot of this is because of the lack of medication and doctors that were there. Also, a lot of women have died before the age of 50 due to dying during pregnancy because they didn't have the right medications to help them and not enough people that could help them birth their children. They also went into septic shock because a lot of them had the placentas left in them, and they had a higher death rate, of course, before the 1900s due to the lack of medicine and doctors that were able to help. And they also had a huge lack of hygiene, which also caused a lot of problems in their health.
Okay, here's the graph for 100 males that have died after 1900. So as we can see, it's quite a steady downcline, and then we have a slope off. This is a type 3 graph. Ideally, we would have seen a lower infant mortality rate, but the data collected was mostly males that died in like 1905 to 1910. So we're still kind of seeing the trends from before the 1900s. But we do see here at the bottom males living longer than in the 1800s. We've got a male that lived over 100, and there was a good amount that lived into their 80s, late 70s. This could be due to many factors. Medical practices were greatly improved during the 1900s, medicines, and just overall we can see that in the graph, that more males are surviving later into adulthood. That was all.
Alrighty guys, so I did the females after 1900, and we can see here that the curve starts out very high, so the infants were living a lot more than those before 1900, or the males before or after 1900. But as Katherine mentioned, they were taken between a certain amount of time, so they kind of see the trends from before. But females were living longer, and this is a type 1 curve where it starts out with a high percentage and then it just levels off here at the end. And we can see a drop off from the years 50 to 60, and that's probably just because that's the average death rate. Even today, that's the average death rate. And more people lived after 1900, mostly because medical advances, and women were able to live through childbirth because we had that medicine, and doctors were learning more, and they weren't just kind of winging it. And we see that the longest living, I believe, was 100, and we can still see this even today. So that's that.
Graph discussing and showing the percent population that died in the year 1918. All of the data points come from 1916 to 1921 that we use, but this is just focusing on 1918 here. And there's a few reasons we're seeing more death rates in here. It could be from World War I because of the men dying there, and also the Spanish influenza killed a lot of young people. And old people, the medical techniques were still not great. So along the line, we're seeing a lot more deaths than normal during this period. And we can see this graphed on this histogram.
Okay.